What's up, everybody? It's been a minute. Hope everyone's doing all right. It's been a minute since I've done one of these. Actually, quite a few months, I think. Been off the YouTube grid as far as the English side for a while. So my apologies for that. So got some news. I guess that I'll be somewhat announcing right now in a few minutes here, but before we get that going, let me just quickly introduce the video. This is obviously a UFC 266 preview. The card coming up this weekend with two titles on the line, and obviously the return of Nick Diaz, which is probably the biggest talking point here. So the way this is gonna work is gonna be done a little bit differently than the ones I was doing before, prior to like this big break. So if you've been watching my stuff over in the Spanish side of things, or of Hablemos MMA, I'm gonna be doing basically the same thing. So just previewing the card, giving you my overall thoughts of the main matchups, and then maybe some other fights that I'd like to highlight. And then after that, it's a free-for-all. So if you got questions on some of the things that I already talked about, or some of the things that I didn't touch on, make sure to throw them on the YouTube live chat, okay? And I'll get to that later in the video. Sounds good? All right. So with that out of the way, by the way, my name is Segura. I'm a reporter for MMA Junkie. You guys know that. For the people that don't, there you go. So yeah, right off the bat, I want to get into sort of an update on the channel. I know it's been a minute since I've done one of these, and I've seen the comments, go on my old videos and comment like, yo, what's up with the content? Is there anything coming up? And, I've seen the tweets as well. Got a couple emails too. So yeah, basically, I don't know. I was kind of a little burnt out, so needed a break. And it was a combination of that and a few other things, including, one, I've just been busy as hell. If you've been tuning into my coverage over MMA Junkie, I think I've covered something like 6 events in 8 weeks. On top of already all the other interviews in Spanish and stuff that I'm doing in Hablemos MMA. So it's really been very hectic for me in the last couple of months. I went to LA for Bellator, Tampa for BKFC, 3 PFL events back to back, and then that Triller Holyfield Vitor Belfort fight. So it's been hectic for me, but things should be a little bit more chill in the next coming weeks. I don't think I have any travel booked as far as work, so I should have more time available in my hands to focus a little bit more time in this channel. Another thing that kind of contributed to this long break is I've sort of teased before in the past, I want to upgrade the quality. That's big on me. That's big for me. I've always wanted to do things top notch or as best as I can. I think this experience that you guys are taking in right now and have been for the last few months, one, I've done some changes over the past, so it's going up, but I feel like I can take it to a different level. So I kind of wanted to come back strong, but then at the same time, I had some things delay that as far as some of the plans that I have surrounding the, you can say, I guess, rebranding of this channel. So yeah, I didn't want to just keep waiting on it and then just keep, being inactive. So I'll be somewhat active. There won't be a weekly live Q&A as I was doing. I'll do some previews, some recaps, and then a live chat here and there. But once I get things sorted out as far as the rebranding, and once I get, the look that I want for this specific channel and the experience, then that's when the fun begins. All right. So stay tuned. All right. Some changes coming in the next few weeks. So please be patient. All right. So with that out of the way, let's get into the UFC 266 coverage. Obviously, lots to talk about. This card, I think, it gives you a little bit of everything. A lot happening in a lot of divisions, a lot of important things. Usually, maybe there's like 1 or 2 divisions where there's key matchups of a card. But here, a lot of things happening at women's 125, men's 145. I guess 170, men's 170, even though this fight with Nick Diaz and Lawler is at 185. But I'm sure the implications reflect to 170. A lot going on at heavyweight, bantamweight, lightweight. I mean, you just go down the line and there are big storylines everywhere. All right. So let's get into it. I'm going to start from top to bottom. cover the main 3 fights, and then after that, maybe a couple others, and then after that, again, free for all, and I'll answer your questions. So if you got any questions about the card, feel free to throw them at any point during the YouTube live chat, and I'll get to them shortly. Cool. All right, so the main event, a featherweight showdown between Alexander Volkanovski and Brian Ortega. This fight, man, I like it and I hate it. And here's why. Love Alexander Volkanovski. I think he's one of the most underrated champions today in the UFC. He should be, up there. Just a brilliant fighter all around, but really not. He hasn't really gained much of the respect that he probably deserves. In part because I think his style, I don't think it doesn't help that he's, not US based. I don't think his personality is great, but I don't necessarily think it's very controversial in any way. Like, Israel Adesanya or is not as fiery as well. I think that's been changing a little bit in this buildup. I've actually quite enjoyed the animosity that he has towards Brian Ortega. In fact, their animosity doesn't match. Usually, like whenever there is a rivalry, animosity, beef, whatever you want to call it, it matches, right? Like DC, Jones, and we can talk about Jones in a little bit. I already see some questions. Those two match. You know what I'm saying? They were always competing at each other. Who hated each other the most? And you can say the same thing about most rivalries, right? Nate Diaz, Conor McGregor, etc. This one seems like Ortega's right here as far as the level of hate for Volkanovski, but Volkanovski's just in another level, which is kind of odd, right? Usually if you don't like me, I don't like you type of situation, but not here. But honestly, I kind of been digging that. We've seen a different side of Volkanovski. We've seen a side that he can talk trash. He's witty. He's smart. I think his comments have been interesting. I don't know if that's come across well and everybody has been enjoying it, but I certainly have. And I think I liked sort of the ruthless champions, and we're getting a little bit of that with him in this buildup. But anyways. So anyways, I love that matchup as far as the build-up. I love the matchup as far as I think it's a great fight. I think it's a very interesting fight. I think it's I'm all about getting new looks for the champions, right? I think that's the most interesting part of watching a champion reign, right? One of the most interesting things about George St. Pierre's run was, all the type of challenges he had to face to retain the title. So here, he faced Max Holloway back-to-back. Defeated him twice. I wasn't a huge fan of that immediate rematch. Jose Aldo, striker, obviously different style than Holloway, but nonetheless, somebody that's problematic on the feet. Chad Mendes, even though he might be known as a wrestler, he really abandoned that a while ago, and he was mainly a power puncher that, when needed, he could wrestle. And that's about it. Those are the type of challenges he's faced as far as the elite of MMA. Obviously, he wasn't champion when he beat Aldo and Mendes, but you know what I'm saying. He was fighting the very top of the division. With Ortega here, he's getting a completely different look. And this is what we're going to find out, sort of the ceiling of Volkanovski's possible and potential reign at 145 pounds, right? Like if he's able to get past a submission specialist, somebody that is a threat on the ground, the way that Ortega is, all of a sudden, especially if he passes with flying colors and he does it well, all of a sudden you're going to have to start asking some hard questions as far as who's going to be able to beat him, right? Because he faced a stud grappler in Darren Elkins, right? Like somebody that's just will pressure you and will wrestle the shit out of you basically from the start of the fight to the very end. He passed that with flying colors. He's beaten several different strikers in Aldo and Holloway, somebody very well-rounded in Chad Mendes, and if he's able to get past Ortega, we're gonna be asking some serious questions as far as what are the skills needed to dethrone that guy. So that's what I love about this matchup. But on the flip side, if we're talking about Brian Ortega, I think he's a fantastic fighter. I respect the hell out of Ortega, but we're talking about somebody that really only has one fight since December of 2018. Think about that. So in almost 3 years, because December's creeping up, in almost 3 years, he's only competed once. And I don't care, this is not specific to Ortega that, ring rust is going to get him, nothing personal to him, but I just wouldn't favor any fighter, even if it's Jose Aldo, even if it's Max Holloway, insert whatever 45er you want, and then just have them only fight once in 3 years. I don't like that. I don't care who you are. I don't like your odds against Volkanovski. Somebody that's very active, somebody that's always on point whenever he steps in the octagon. You never see him out of shape. You never see him, having an off night. Obviously, he might have better nights than others, but all in all, he shows up. He always shows up, Volkanovski. And yeah, part of that, it doesn't sit well with me. The fact that Brian Ortega has only fought once in 3 years, basically, here. I understand that, in his one performance, he did look amazing. He put away, he actually outpointed Chan Sung Young, almost put him away. He basically just beat him up for the entirety of that fight. But Ortega is an opportunist in the sense of somebody that will capitalize on key mistakes, right? Like if you make a mistake on the ground, the slightest mistake, he's so good that he'll snatch something, break your arm, choke you out unconscious, whatever it is. And in the striking department, he's sort of become a threat, right? We can't forget about that Frankie Edgar fight. We can't forget about that Chan Sung Young performance. But those are guys, especially Chan Sung Young, that make mistakes. Not necessarily make mistakes, but take chances, take risks. And that's when Ortega will make you pay. Ortega's not really the type of fighter that will systematically break you down over the course of 5 rounds. That systematically will beat you and outpoint you. No, he'll fight you, and along the fight, if you make one little mistake, whether it's on the feet or the ground, he'll make you pay for it, and it'll cost you big time. Well, Volkanovski is not that type of fighter. He's not a type of fighter to take risks to his detriment, even. I think it's obviously worked out very well for him. He's like, 22-1, champion at 145 pounds. But perhaps that hasn't given him the most fan-friendly style, and that's why maybe some fans don't appreciate him as much as he should be. But the guy goes in there with a game plan, and he sticks by it. He's one of the best at sticking by a game plan no matter what happens, no matter whether he's tired, he's going through pain, he's down in rounds, whatever it is. The guy can stick to a game plan, can execute it perfectly, whether it's a plan A, plan B. He knows how to follow the route, and he's able to stay cool and composed there. He doesn't really fight emotional and sort of expose himself or risk too much. So that's where I see the trouble for Ortega. I don't think Volkanovski will throw something out there within their fight and sort of allow Ortega to pass him some receipts on some of the mistakes. I think he's going to fight very, very careful and just very calculated. And that's where I see just Volkanovski having a pretty dominant decision. I don't know if he'll beat the crap out of him like Max Holloway did against Ortega. I don't know if that's exactly what will happen, but I do feel like he's going to win pretty convincingly a decision. Again, he doesn't make any mistakes, and that's where Ortega sort of shines best. But again, Ortega's a young fighter. He's obviously been improving his game, has made some changes to his camp. So we don't really know what sort of he's going to bring here. I think that's the only plus side, right? I don't think necessarily that Volkanovski's camp can really go off by Ortega, 2018 and prior. I think there's obviously a new version. How much of it, right? We don't know, but certainly against Chan Sung Young, he proved that, he's hitting other gears in his game. We'll see how far those gears go. But so I think that's interesting, sort of the element of surprise there. But if you ask me, I'm a guy that sort of likes to go with the safe bet. If I were on Ortega's side, I know obviously title shots don't come around often, but look, clearly the UFC likes you. They favor you in some sort of way. You're a very skilled fighter, still growing. Hey, let's get 1, 2, 3 wins behind you. Sort of build the momentum. Let's get you accustomed to this new set of skills that you have, and then we go for the title. But here we are. So we'll see what happens. But a lot of people see this as close. A lot of people see this as a fight that can go either way, and it certainly can, but I feel pretty confident in picking the champion here, Volkanovski. I really do. So that's sort of my main breakdown, main assessment of that fight. Now, moving on to the co-main event in a women's flyweight title fight. I mean, what do you want me to say, right? Valentina Shevchenko taking on here Lauren Murphy, who's actually, I would say, one of the most interesting foes that she's, I would say the most interesting as of late would be Andrade, but certainly like top 2 or top 3 as far as the most interesting title fights she's had at 125 pounds, I believe. But look, even then, like Shevchenko is a historic talent. I think she's the most technical fighter in MMA today. And I'm not just talking about pound for pound, and I'm not just talking about the women's side, but just in the entire sport, period. I think for a while, Demetrius Johnson had that title, in my opinion. Now, there's a big difference. I just want to clarify. I'm not saying she's the GOAT of MMA in general, but there's a difference between being the GOAT, which is more in line with achievement, than the most technical, right? Two different things. As far as being the most technical, I think Shevchenko really is in the game. She's got no holes whatsoever. She is a great submission artist, not only from up top, but off her back. She can wrestle defensively and offensively. Her striking is beautiful. Not only is she good with punches, but kicks, knees. I mean, everything. Her she can adapt to fights. Physically, athletically, always shows up. You never see her out of shape, really. I mean, she really is as close as you can get to perfection in this game as of today. I really do think she's the best out there. So with that being said, anybody that you put in front of her at 125 pounds within her weight class, it has to be a sizable underdog, and rightfully so. I think Lauren Murphy here is just that, right? I don't want to completely discard Lauren Murphy. As I said, I do think she's got some interesting things. For one, I think she athletically, she has there are things that she presents that are very interesting. So, if I were on Lauren Murphy's corner, this is what I would sort of game plan around, and I'm curious to see if they actually go that route. Because if they do, I'm not saying she's going to dethrone Valentina, but I think there is a path to victory there. Is it likely? No. But is there one? Sure. I really do think there is. I'm not here to say, like maybe some other people that just completely be like, look, there's no way Lauren Murphy's going to beat Valentina Shevchenko. Nobody will. It's just about how are you going to lose, whether submission, TKO, or decision. I don't think it's that far gone. I think with some other matchups like the Priscilla Cachoeira and others, maybe you can say that with 1,000% certainty. But there is a slight path to victory here for Lauren Murphy, and let me explain. As I said, Lauren Murphy physically, I think technically she cannot match Shevchenko. I mean, I don't see an area where she can best Shevchenko. There might be areas where she closes in the gap and maybe even makes it competitive. Got some Cuban coffee here. But I don't necessarily think there's an area where you go, okay, like, in this one, if the fight goes here, she's going to win. I don't think there's that. But the only area as far as outside of the technical perspective that is, I believe, in Lauren Murphy's favor is the athleticism. Obviously, Shevchenko is a great athlete, but I think is physical prowess, just raw power, I think Lauren Murphy takes that one. If you were to put both in a competition, athletic competition, say like MTV's The Challenge or, The Island or whatever, these like reality TV shows they do that, they're about like physical challenges. Maybe Lauren Murphy can beat her in certain areas. I really do think physically she matches Shevchenko, who's also very athletic, and maybe even best her. I think she's certainly one of the bigger fighters at 125 pounds, one of the most physical, imposing fighters in that weight class. And I think if she's able to turn the fight very ugly and take the technique out of the fight and make it a physical contest and just see who's in more shape, who's in better shape, who's the strongest, who's willing to dig deeper, who will perform at a better level when exhausted. If you take the fight there, sort of like a Darren Elkins style, right? Gleison Tibau was very, very famous for that, where he knew that he could operate at a higher level when exhausted than you could. So maybe fresh, you could beat his ass, but once you take the gas levels here, he knew he had a technical edge. So I think that's where Lauren Murphy might have a path here. So what does that mean? Clincher. Clinch her and put her in positions where there is not much technique involved and physical ability reigns in that position. And there's many positions in jiu-jitsu and in striking as well where technique is king, right? Where if the most technical fighter in certain area is going to come out on top. But there are a lot of other positions that sort of even the playing field because of the nature of the position itself. And it comes down to who's just stronger, who's got better cardio, who's got a better grip, these little small things. So, for example, if they were to clinch, right, 50-50, right, over-under. So, Lauren Murphy has an underhook, Shevchenko an overhook, Shevchenko the same thing, right? Overhook, underhook. Once you're locked up there, it comes down to who has a better grip, who has a better, footing. Obviously, there's some level of technique. I'm not saying just brute strength will rule that position, but certainly, like, you can override technique by just being the better fitted fighter, right? Clinch her up, just make the fight ugly and make it a fight where Shevchenko cannot implement technique or she's fighting in a way where very little technique is being implemented. And if that's the case, things could get interesting. Let's not forget, I know she looked extremely dominant in her last title defense against Jessica Andrade, but if you rewind one more against Jennifer Maia, I believe, won one round. There was a time where she took Shevchenko down and was able to hold her down because Maia is a big girl, and I don't think it was a hole or a revelation as far as something in Valentina's game from technical standpoint, but I think it just came down to Maia was able to find a position where she was able to use her physicality and she came out up top. And then they paid off because she ended up being on top for the rest of the fight and won the round. And also she's very gifted as far as being her jiu-jitsu skills, so was able to avoid any submissions and stuff like that. So anyways, obviously, again, I don't want to go too in-depth with this. I think Shevchenko's going to win. I think she's going to win convincingly. She's a historic talent. As I said, this is no dig at Lauren Murphy. I think she's a great person. I've talked to her in the past. She's awesome. She's a fantastic fighter. Probably the second best in that division, right? But Shevchenko's just something else. She just really is. But yeah, we'll see how that fight goes down. If there is some sort of upset or something, I can't imagine it being any other way than what I just kind of broke down. So we'll see what happens there. All right. So just how I do in Hablemos MMA, again, we're going to implement sort of the same style here. Always break down the main and co-main event and then some of the other interesting fights on the card and then open things up to questions. So again, if you want to ask something, make sure you throw it on the YouTube live chat. I already see some good amount of questions there and I'll get to it shortly. All right. But so anyways, before I get to the questions, we have to chat about another fight. And that's obviously the biggest fight probably of the card, I would say. Nick Diaz returning after how many years of no competition? Last time he fought was 2016? Let me double check here on Wikipedia. Yeah, 2015. So 6 years. 6 years out of competition, closing in on 5, closing in on 6. No, sorry, 6, closing in on 7. So it's been a while since we've seen Nick Diaz fight. I think it probably doesn't feel that way just because his brother has been in the octagon. I wouldn't say frequently, I'd be lying, but certainly with more frequency than Nick. And, he carries that Nick Diaz Army banner and has a very similar style in both his personality and fighting style. So, we do get Diaz brother action. So maybe it doesn't feel like he's been gone for that long, but it really has been that long. I don't know who it was, but I remember somebody tweeted this week that Nick Diaz skipped the whole Reebok era. He never fought under the Reebok era. He just went straight into the Venom era. And that itself lets you know how long it's been, how far MMA has come since Nick Diaz last fought. So anyways, he's making his return, long-awaited return against Robbie Lawler in a rematch that I absolutely love. If you've sort of read the 21 or 20 fight wish list that I make at the end of the year for 2021, entering 2021 and entering 2020 for MMA Junkie, one of the top fights that I wished for and was on my wish list was one, Nick Diaz comeback and against Robbie Lawler in a rematch. I really do think if you're trying to make Nick Diaz come back, whether it's just for fun or whether it's for maybe to see if there's, enough gas left in the tank for a potential run to the title or something at least meaningful, I do think either route that you want to take, because those are really the only two avenues that you take here with Diaz, it's either fun or let's see what he's got. It's got to be against Robbie Lawler, right? Robbie Lawler checks all the boxes. One, there is history, right? There is a story there behind the matchup. It's combining, bringing back nostalgia of an era that is long gone. I mean, last time they fought was in 2004. The UFC didn't even have their logo stamped on their gloves. It was just a black glove. It wasn't so far back that they had duct tape around the gloves. They still had the colored red and blue just to tell them apart from their corners, right? But they didn't even have their logos on their gloves. I mean, it was just a completely different era. So one, there's a nostalgia behind that. Two, stylistically, I think even if both fighters turn out to be very far removed from their prime, that doesn't mean it's going to be a bad fight, right? I think we can all agree that what we all look for mainly in competition is that competition. Competitiveness, right? Like fair matchups. So even at a lower level, you can enjoy regional MMA. You can enjoy fighters that are 0-0 or 1-0, just so long the fight is competitive and there's a back and forth. So again, even if they're far removed from their prime and it turns out to be not their best night, stylistically, I think, and technically, I think it's a competitive, fun fight. So whether it's high level MMA or not so high level MMA, I think this fight's going to be exciting either way. And again, Robbie carries all the prestige in the world, being a former champion and being a legend. So just a perfect way to introduce Nick Diaz back into MMA. So very, very curious about this fight. It is the fight that I'm eyeing out the most out of this entire card. Now, I'm not here to say that Nick Diaz is back. I'm not here to say that he's going to fight Kamaru Usman, but I'm also not here to say that he's completely washed. I really want to reserve my opinion on that. And I know you guys are probably like, oh, he's sitting on the fence, whatever. But I just feel like there's not much to go by as far as to make an educated, and I'm very opinionated. I don't have a problem, going either way. And I'm not this stay on the fence type of dude. But on this one, I am, because I feel like on both sides, I see too much optimism from certain people, but I also see too much pessimism from certain people, especially the media. If you guys noticed after that ESPN interview came out with Brett Okamoto, which, by the way, it was a fantastic interview, the tone changed. Maybe not so much in the fan base, but certainly among media members. It went from being stoked and being excited for Nick Diaz's return to, I don't know if he should be in the cage anymore. Type of thing. But Nick Diaz has always felt that way. He's never liked fighting. And I think a lot was made, and again, I'm not trying to put down that ESPN interview. It was a fantastic interview from Brett. I'm just saying I feel like we're dissecting it a little bit too much. That's Nick Diaz's attitude has always been like that towards his fighting career. He's always hated it. He's always hated fighting. It's just something he does, but he doesn't enjoy fight night. He doesn't enjoy talking to the media. He doesn't enjoy a lot of the things that come with the sport. He enjoys the martial arts, the training, the becoming a good fighter. I think he might actually enjoy the fight itself, but some of the things around it and some of the things post, such as damage. He's one of the very few fighters, I would say, that is very conscious, even at a young age, of being aware that these fights, do come with the receipts down the line. There's a famous interview that he had years ago saying, taking punches from Robbie Lawler is not good for you. He said something like that. A lot of fighters in their prime, they can't see past that. And it happens to a lot of, not even fighters, just young people, right? Like, you're just living your life when you're young, and it's just hard to have a mentality of like what your health will be like when you're in your 50s or whatever. Like, even for me, I recently turned 29 last week. Like, it's just tough to think of yourself right down the line, right? So Nick Diaz has always had that attitude. So I don't want to put too much stock in that interview and those comments. Even GSP at the red carpet, you can check out that interview on MMA Junkie, my colleague John Morgan asked him, like, hey, what are your thoughts on, I think it was John Morgan. It might have been Oscar. I don't know. But anyways, someone asked GSP, so what do you make of Nick Diaz and his mentality? He said these recent comments, and GSP agreed with everything he said. He's like, literally, fight day is the worst day of my life. I hate fighting. I like the money. I like the fame. I like training, the lifestyle, the liberty that career brings as far as the life. But fighting, I absolutely hate it. It's the worst. And you're hearing that from the GOAT himself. So I don't make anything of that interview as far as being worried. Again, it was a fantastic interview, but very entertaining, very amusing as far as giving you a window of how Nick Diaz thinks. But I don't think Nick Diaz's head is not in the right place. That's not my takeaway from that interview. So not worried about Nick Diaz at all. So again, I'm not saying he's going to go out there and be the next challenger for Kamaru Usman and look like a complete threat. Who knows how his physical and skills are at 38 years of age. But as far as his mentality, that I don't question. So I'm going to go with Nick Diaz here just because, fuck it, Nick Diaz army. Robbie Lawler has been on a big downfall. I've said this on Spinning Back Click on Tuesday for MMA Junkie. Nick Diaz, one promising thing that he has for his return is that his game has never been based around athleticism. You see some fighters who really rely on athleticism, whether it's strength, whether it's speed, reflexes, whatever it is, in order to be at the top of the pack, right? I think a really good example on that was Uriah Faber. Obviously a guy that's been able to maintain at a really good physical shape, even in he's like in his 40s now, which is kind of crazy. I think it speaks of his athletic abilities, but certainly somebody that really needed those athletic abilities in his athletic prime to be on top. Right once he started getting a little older and losing a little bit of the speed, then we saw a downfall. Diaz is not like that. Neither Diaz. They've never been the fastest guys. They're much like a Prius if you want to compare them to a car. Never been the fastest car on the lot, but they are efficient. And we know that people that run triathlons and stuff like that can do that well into their 40s. I believe, I might even be mistaken, but the prime for somebody that does triathlons and marathons might be like late 30s. That's when your body is best suited for that type of demand of the body, that cardiovascular demand. So cardio, I think, is the last thing to go out. You can be in good shape, till you're pretty old, right? So yeah, Nick Diaz never relied on speed, never relied on strength. He relied on his cardio, on volume, and his skills and his grit. And, that's the last thing to go. So we'll see how his chin holds up as well. Obviously, Lawler hits pretty hard still. He has some good power behind his punches. But yeah, I would say I'm on the optimistic side of for Nick Diaz's return. I think he'll look good, at the very least, decent. So we'll see. But going with Nick Diaz here. All right. So I got one more fight to highlight, but I think I'm going to do that at the end. I'm going to go over to the questions now and sort of just scoop up everything that I didn't touch on this quick little preview for UFC 266. Or maybe just some things that I did highlight, but you guys want me to go more in depth. All right. Damn, a shitload of questions. You guys are glad to see me back. I'm glad to be back. Let's see here. Alex Alberto G. Hola, Ani. Hello, Danny. Sorry, I read that in Spanish. Been spending too much time over at Hablemos MMA. Hello, Danny. Discovered you thanks to Luke Thomas. Yes, a lot of good things come from watching Luke Thomas content. Check out his stuff. He's been killing it, by the way. Really happy for him. Let's see here. Initial thoughts on Jon Jones. So so not really, I guess, related to UFC 266 fight weeks, and since he just got inducted to the Hall of Fame, but obviously he's not really on the card. Shit. What can I say about Jon Jones, man? All right, yeah, so just quickly brush up on the news for those that didn't know, but I'm assuming everybody here is aware at this point. He was arrested on Friday morning around 5 a.m., so not long after the ceremony for the UFC Hall of Fame induction that he had for his crazy ass fight with Alexander Gustafsson. And I really just read the quick headline of the news because I was about to go live. I haven't read an actual story, so let's pull up a Junkie here article, MMA Junkie article on Jon Jones' arrest. So yeah, around 5:45 a.m. local time in Vegas, he was arrested with 2 charges: one of misdemeanor, battery, domestic violence, and a felony injuring and tampering with a vehicle. So yeah, I mean, obviously more details to come. This is the very first thing that comes out when something like this happens, but it's not good, man. It's not good. And I actually had a tweet drafted that I was about to post right before going live, but all I can say is that this is not good. This is not good at all. Obviously, innocent until proven guilty. We'll see what the details are once they roll out. Certainly when information rolls out, we can definitely feel a lot more different than we do now about sort of these initial charges, right? But it's not like it's happening to a fighter that rarely gets into trouble and you're like, okay, well, let's calm down here. Let's get the full picture here. No, this is happening with Jon Jones, who's had a storied past with run-ins with the law. So this, personally, for his personal life, this is not good. Pertaining to MMA, because this is what this YouTube channel is about, also not good, right? I've said it. I think the biggest hurdles that we've had in our mind for a potential comeback of Jon Jones, especially at heavyweight, and this sort of second chapter of his career in a new weight class, has way more hurdles than just the UFC brass and wanting fair compensation for his services. Clearly, these run-ins with the law are a concern and a problem for his career. I don't think the UFC reads this and goes, geez, we definitely got to get him back in the octagon. No, not at all. I think, if anything, quite the opposite. Turns them off from having him back, sooner rather than later. I think sometimes the UFC, like a lot of companies and organizations, not only in the fight world, but other sporting and stuff, sometimes they turn a blind eye on certain criminal and certain law problems on athletes and whatnot, because there's profit to be made from them and whatnot. But even then, I don't think that's still, again, I don't think it stops them. I think we've seen fighters with questionable pasts, get promoted, be in title fights, et cetera, et cetera. But I'm not saying it stops them, but it certainly can't help. It cannot help. And Dana has even said it and has used sort of the problems against him. He's like, he's the GOAT, but like, look at all these problems that he sort of cost us, right? These PR messes and whatnot. And I don't think that's necessarily a fair thing to say, right? I don't think that's necessarily related to or correlated with compensation. I think what's fair is fair, no matter what you do. Like, you should get paid for your services, and if you get in trouble outside of the cage, obviously that's not good, and certainly there should be consequences for that. But that doesn't merit we're gonna pay you less because you have a criminal record. No, but still, that's still not good. So all around, just bad news for Jon Jones. It's very sad to see, because honestly, I saw his speech at the Hall of Fame ceremony, and it was a very nice speech. He's very charismatic, and he seems happy. His family, his fiance and his kids were there. Obviously, we've seen him at odds with Dana White in the UFC, and he was thanking Dana. He was happy to be at a UFC event. So it just kind of felt like good, like, okay, like maybe things are going the right direction here. But, comes around 5:45 a.m. in the morning, and, he's out there getting in trouble with the law, and God knows what the details are. I hope everyone's okay. Obviously, as I said, there was some domestic violence charges there, which is not good. I hope everyone's okay. But certainly, battery, domestic violence. Yeah. So yeah, we'll see what happens. Again, there's not a whole lot I can say without more details, but certainly not good, man. Certainly not good, Alex. We'll see what happens. Okay, another question about Jones. I kind of just touched on it. Any updates on Jon Jones' situation? No, beyond what I just mentioned, I don't think there's anything else out there. Let me just quickly glance at that article, make sure I didn't miss anything. Yeah, nothing. But yeah, not good. Not good. Lukman Hakim Sulaiman. Why does UFC censor Volka's comments about Ortega's PED past? Do they? I don't think they promote them. That's not in their interest, and I don't think they've ever promoted, hey, this fighter tested positive for steroids or whatever, for a PED. It's sort of the media's job, right? But I don't think they throw it under the rug. Either way, I don't think they censored it. But maybe I'm wrong. Did if anybody can clarify with the comments, that would be swell. Did the UFC bleep out or take out Volkanovski's comments during their face-off regarding PEDs? Because I've only seen what we shot over at MMA Junkie, and I believe our shooter Kenny, he was most likely 99% sure connected to the box that feeds the audio to our live stream, to our cameras, and everybody else's cameras, all the media that's there. And that's the same audio that the UFC uses for their feed, if I'm not mistaken. They might have music and some other things on top of it that we don't get, that media members don't get. But as far as what they say, sort of the microphones, they should be the same. So I'm pretty sure those comments were also on the UFC live stream for the face-offs. I'm pretty sure, or the presser. But yeah, as far as I'm aware, that I don't think they've censored anything. But again, if somebody has any other information about it, throw it on the comments. I'd be interested to know if that's the case. Okay, Gustavo Enrique here asking about Leon Edwards versus Masvidal. Again, I kind of want to keep things UFC 266. I touched on Jones just because it's kind of tied with the whole fight week, because it's International Fight Week and there was a Hall of Fame ceremony. But down the line, I'll make some videos more about not previews and recaps, but again, the whole sport, as I've done with my weekly live Q&A. So I just want to stick with UFC 266. Sorry, Gustavo. If you want to ask something else, go for it. But we'll keep away from the Leon Edwards topic. Let's see here. Christian Gilin. I think that's how you pronounce it. Sorry if I mispronounced that. Good to see you again on YouTube, Danny. Thank you. Good to be back. What are your thoughts on Jon Jones being arrested? Well, just said my thoughts. Alex Alberto G. Do you feel like Brian Ortega is too distracted by his girlfriend, Tracy? There's been a lot of footage of him being with her while Volkanovski is laser focused. No, I don't think Tracy Cortez is here an issue for Brian. If anything, quite the opposite. But that doesn't mean he's not distracted. I think he might be. He could be. I'm not saying he might be. He is. He could be maybe a little distracted. And maybe that's been a downfall to his career. He admitted it at the media day. He's like, dude, I was partying, the week of my fight with Max Holloway. And I was trying to party this week. And my girlfriend, Tracy, was like, no. Cut that shit out. I believe that was the direct quote. So is he distracted? Yeah, maybe. But I think if anything, Cortez is Tracy's sort of keeping him in check here. Dude, second title shot, every time you get a title shot and fail, the next one, there's very few exceptions, right? Like a Frankie Edgar and a few other fighters here and there. But for the most part, if you lose a title fight, your second title shot is going to be a lot harder to get. And if you lose that one, your third one's going to be a lot harder to get. And it just keeps going and going and going. Not only because you're older. Well, in some ways you can get better, so never mind. Physicality has nothing to do with it, but depending on where you're at in your career, it might. But just from a promotional standpoint, it's just hard to keep giving somebody and granting somebody title shots after they come up short. So, dude, this is your second title shot, and you're still thinking about partying the week of your fight against Volkanovski after you already knew that partying might have played a factor in your first title shot, and that's why you think you didn't perform the fullest. And here you are, second opportunity, and still thinking about partying. I'm not trashing. I don't want to trash sort of Ortega in this one, but I'm just kind of thinking out loud as far as if I were his coach, like, that's not good. I wouldn't want that for my fighter. I wouldn't want my fighter to be thinking that way, whether, like, that's not good. You know, I think there is some alarms. You know, again, what they say to the media sometimes is complete BS. Sometimes it's maybe to be a little controversial, you know, come off as the cool kid or whatever, you know. Certainly, you know, Jon Jones is a great example of being able to party and do certain miscellaneouses and show up and kick ass, you know. Certainly not out of the realm of possibilities. But dude, I mean, if I got to drop money with the guy that's thinking about partying or the guy that's laser focused, I'm going to go with the guy that's laser focused for the most part, right? Certainly a little red flag there, but again, I'm glad kind of Tracy kept him in check and is like, bro, you got a title fight. You got to chill out. You ain't going to no club. So no, Alex Alberto, I think if anything, Tracy's is good for him, just based off what Ortega said. Again, I don't know their relationship. I don't know them. I don't know what they do off camera. So, you know, I can't say for certainty. But from the little comments that Ortega has dropped here and there, it seems Tracy's very much a positive influence in his life. So so it seems. Micholos. From the Ultimate Fighter season, did any fighters interest you? Did you watch how Volkanovski and Ortega coach other fighters? Dude, I didn't watch, to be honest. I watched the first episode and some of the fights throughout the season, but the drama, the season itself, I don't watch. You know, with Contender Series, other promotions, some of the things I'm doing over at Hablemos MMA, some of the things that I want to do here. There's just so much MMA out there, and it's crazy. I don't know if this is something that I'm noticing now, but the amount of MMA that's out there, not only from the UFC has ramped up their activity, but also many other promotions have. Like, there's so much out there, dude, that there are some people out there, and God bless them. I don't know how they do it, but, you know, to each their own. And there are some media members out there that, like, can consume absolutely everything 24/7, and that's awesome. I wish I were one of those people, but I certainly need my days off and my breaks from the sport, because it can get a little bit too much. So for me, like, unless I'm gonna get assigned to watch The Ultimate Fighter and I gotta write a recap on it or something, like, I'm not watching. Maybe I would for future seasons if there's something more interest, but to be quite honest, like, Ortega and Volkanovski rivalry sort of didn't pique my interest from a Ultimate Fighter perspective. Again, I know I'm not everyone. I know a lot of people were into the show, but me personally, no, I did not check out their show. I probably should, but anyways, moving on here. Okay, Gustavo Enrique Nunez with a UFC 266 question. If Nick Diaz wins, what are the chances that he fights Usman or a top middleweight next? I think we'll see. It's important to see how he looks. If he beats Lawler and he looks damn good, and he's able to cut a promo, because people forget, people think that the Diaz brothers, especially Nick, have a rep of being kind of bad on the mic because they're quiet. They don't like to do media. They don't do media often. Like, you saw them at the presser. They're just like, yep, whatever. Yes, no, kind of answering in that type of manner. But post-fight, dude, like the whole don't be scared, homie, where you at, George? If they're fired up, dude, they can cut some of the best promos in mixed martial arts. I mean, you know, I'm not surprised, the Conor McGregor, you've worked for everything I've worked for. Conor McGregor, you got everything I worked for, whatever. They can cut some sick promos. So never say never. If he goes out there and puts a beating on Lawler, looks absolutely amazing, and cuts a sick promo against Usman, I know Usman is in for some money fights. So he's going to be down. Diaz is going to be down. UFC brass is interested in money. That fight could happen. I don't think it's very likely, but it could happen. I don't think it's impossible, So we'll see. We'll see what happens with Nick Diaz. And this is something that George St. Pierre said when they were talking about Nick Diaz at the red carpet. And he said, I really hope he goes out there and looks great. I think he left the sport, and he left a lot of money on the table when he left. And it's true, man. Just look at the success that his little brother, Nate Diaz, has had, and all the bomb, stupid paychecks that he's gotten throughout his, the latest chapter of his career as being a superstar. That could have been Nick. That could have been Nick. Not that he would have replaced Nate Diaz, but, people forget, and maybe if you guys are new fans, you might not realize this, but Nick was the leader. Like, Nick was the face of sort of that thing. Like, Nate Diaz obviously was a known fighter. Nate Diaz was respected, but the main attraction has always been Nick Diaz. Obviously, that took a big change over the last few years. But shit, that Conor McGregor fight could have been Nick Diaz. There's so many things that could have been Nick Diaz. Maybe not, because Nick is a little bigger than Nate, so maybe he would have made 155 to replace McGregor. But anyways, you know what I'm saying? Like, he could have been in like super fights. He could have been in sort of this super fight era that we've seen in the last few years. I mean, he hasn't fought since 2015. Like, he completely missed out on that trash talking money era per se. And in many ways, he's always been a pioneer from all kinds of things, from like openly, marijuana use to even kind of super fights. Like, people forget his last fight was against Anderson Silva. And that was one of the very first fights in the UFC of this sort of magnitude where you're like, ooh, it's got this sort of weird super fight feel. Sort of like this shouldn't be happening, but it is type of feeling that we've gotten with other fights. But as of recent years. But yeah, Nick Diaz, man, I do agree with George St. Pierre. He left a lot of money on the table. And the only way you can get that money at this point is by winning and by looking good. So I hope, I'm all for everybody, living up to their potential and making as much as they can before they cash out and leave the sport. And I hope Nick Diaz looks great. And I hope he makes some money, because he deserves a lot more than what he's probably made in his career. And he's made a good buck, I think. So never say never with that Usman fight. I think it's possible, but unlikely. Oh, Jing.Ling, Jon Jones arrested. Yes, sir. We covered that earlier. Gustavo, you're fucking me up with these questions, man. What's going to happen first? James going back to the big leagues, James Rodriguez, former football player, now celebrity, or McGregor becoming a UFC champion again? Ooh, that's a tough one, man. I've lost all hope for James. I think McGregor is still a very good fighter, unlike James at his. Well, I think James is still a very good footballer. I think James is way more washed than McGregor. I think McGregor is still a top fighter. Maybe not a top 5. So I don't like his chances of winning a title again. But James back to European football, like, I just don't see it happening. Like, dude, he's a star in Colombia. He's one of the biggest players that's ever played for Colombia. And he's got so much equity built for what he did in the World Cup in 2014. And then on top of that, again, he's a huge name. He just has a very special place in Colombia's heart. And even then, all that didn't even get him a spot in the bench for the World Cup qualifiers, because he's a nightmare to deal with, according to some people. The fame kind of got to his head, allegedly. He's out of form. That's not allegedly, because they won't even play him at a club level at Everton, and they won't bring him to represent the Colombian team internationally, because he's just not in shape. He just seems disinterested with football. I don't necessarily find that to be the case with McGregor with MMA. I do very much think McGregor, even if it's not there anymore, I do think he very much misses and very much desires to be champion again. I think James seems okay with going to Qatar. He really doesn't care. He does not care. He really doesn't care. The passion he had for football is gone. He just wants the paycheck, wants to be famous, and that's it. He wants to be a star. He's not interested in being a world-class football player. McGregor is. Now, just because McGregor is, that might not necessarily be in his cards. So I don't like his chances of becoming a UFC champion again, but the will is still there. So I'm going to go with McGregor. James is done for me, man. I've lost all faith in that guy. It's sad to say, it really is, but I've given him so many chances, and people shit on him, and I've defended him. Sean Sheehan is the biggest James Rodriguez hater, and I'm always out there defending James. But at this point, I can't defend him any longer. He's done, man. James is done. Man, I'm depressed now. Let's see. Petition to have Valentina be a Latin star and be pushed in South America. 100%. Dude, she's got a big following in Peru. And I'm telling you, because this is what I report on, and I have a lot of knowledge about the Latin American audience. People care about Valentina. There are some fighters that speak Spanish, that have Spanish or Hispanic. They might not be Latin American. They might not be born in Latin America, but they have Latin American roots, and they might be, they're big names and ranked and whatnot. And some of the Latin American fans don't really care about them, but Valentina, they do. She's definitely earned herself a piece in the heart of a lot of Latin American fans. Obviously, she's a champion, but she's very proud of her time in Peru. In fact, I actually took out a recent video from an interview I did a while ago with her, but it's still very relevant. It's just a video of her explaining how she ended up going from Kyrgyzstan to Latin America, and then planned for a 6-month trip and ended 8 years living in Latin America. And she's full-on fluent in Spanish. She knows the culture very, very well, knows all the food. She's been in Argentina, Colombia, Peru, Brazil, Chile. She's been everywhere, man. And she loves Latin America, just absolutely loves the culture. So anyways, so me and her talked about how that transition came about, her time, her experience there, how she learned the language. And that's up on Hablemos MMA. So if you want to know the history between Valentina Shevchenko and Latin America, the video is in Spanish. We spoke in Spanish. Check it out, because it's very, very, very interesting. It's about 10 minutes long. I think it's like 8 minutes. But yeah, she's definitely can definitely play a role in opening up that region. And look, I believe they've already pushed her somewhat. Let's pull up her record here. She's fought in Latin America before. She might have headlined in Latin America. I think people forget about that. Let me see here. Dude, yeah. So the first fight card in Uruguay, in Montevideo, back in 2019, she headlined. She defended her title against Liz Carmouche in a rematch. That wasn't just a random, At that time, in 2019 and 2018, the UFC was going ham on Latin America. Remember, they went to Chile. They went to Argentina, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, that's when Santiago Ponzinibbio headlined. And they went to Uruguay. Doors were really opening up for them. Now, the pandemic fucked all that up. but the Hispanic and Latin American market is very big for them, and they have a lot of interest in it, especially South America. Obviously, Mexico's always been there. I would actually dare to say that Mexico took a couple steps back. I think that's going to change now that Moreno's champion. But as far as the Southern Cone, South America, it's been very important for the UFC as of the most recent years pre-pandemic. And I think they very much have interest in the areas. Just, again, the pandemic has completely destroyed everything in Latin America. And people don't realize this. Anybody that's from Latin America or has relatives watching this, they'll know. But for the rest of you, dude, Latin America is a mess, dude. Like, be lucky you're able to get a vaccine here for free. I just talked to, like, a friend. She was my former roommate in New York, and she moved back to Colombia, and she got her Moderna shot recently. Actually, no, like a month ago. And then they just don't have a second shot for her. And a lot of people missed out on a second shot. So, like, they just halfway through they just bounced. We just don't have it. We just don't have it. And they don't know when they're going to get another set of vaccines to vaccinate the people who got the first round. So, and that's recent. For the longest time, unless you were like 60 and up, you couldn't get vaccinated. So consider yourself lucky if you live in the States and you have access to a vaccine. It's the craziest thing to me that, there's people just dying in Latin America in great numbers, and the countries there are really struggling with the pandemic because they don't have, the infrastructures as far as hospitals and the medical facilities and equipment and resources needed to sort of treat patients and people that are struggling with the virus. And then there's no vaccines as well. So, shit's fucked down there. So hope, whenever they get that under control, I think we'll see a UFC there, but I think that might be a while. But anyways, yeah, Valentina would very much be in their plans. She headlined, people forget, she headlined in Uruguay and defended her title on a fight night card. So that's big. That's big. And she's fought in Peru before, prior to her UFC career. She's fought twice in Fusion FC, a respected Peruvian regional promotion. And I'm pretty sure she did a shit ton of kickboxing down there. So, yeah, Valentina's big for the region, man. They're going to push her as soon as they're able to push. We need Valentina on one of those sharpshooter shows on Discovery Channel or History Channel. Yup. Apparently she's pretty sick with the guns, man. Let's see here. Nick Diaz Army 209. What? Let's go. Let's see here. Oh, there we go. This is a good question. Liam Devine. Considering Volkanovski beat Max twice, do his odds as only a slight favorite to beat Ortega confirm he is the most underrated fighter in the UFC? I don't know about fighter, but certainly I think the most underrated champion. I'm trying to think of who else is underrated. Yeah. No, I think. I think he is the most underrated champion in the UFC today. Not fighter, but champion. Dude, the guy's 22-1, man. 22-1, and he's truly beat the greats of. Dude, like, think about this: the GOAT conversation for the greatest featherweights of all time. The greatest featherweights of all time. You guys know where I stand. I think Jose Aldo takes that. But certainly, and I'm pretty convinced about that, but certainly if you were to have a conversation about that, the only person that could be in that conversation is Max Holloway. It's between Max Holloway or Jose Aldo, and he's beat both of them. And Holloway, he beat twice. All right? And then, you add that he's beaten other greats like Chad Mendes, right? He truly is the most underrated champion out there. He's a great talent. He's very skilled. but not appreciated. And I understand why. I'm also not here to like bash you if you don't appreciate Volkanovski. I think, again, so some things have played out to his detriment. His personality doesn't help, even though I feel like that's changing. And again, I like his personality, but it's not in everyone to sort of be that star, right? Be a guy like Adesanya, sort of be on the media, do interviews, be the most charismatic guys. Some people are going to be more charismatic than others. It's as simple as that, And then his fighting style obviously doesn't help as well. But yeah, the guy is the most underrated champion in the UFC by far. All right, which fight are you looking forward to the most, and which fight do you know for sure will not be boring? So the fight I'm looking forward to the most is Nick Diaz versus Robbie Lawler. I have a high degree of confidence that'll be an entertaining fight. Maybe not the most exciting fight on the card as far as fight of the night. I'm not ready to call it that just yet, but I don't think it'll be a boring fight. I really don't. What fight would be the most entertaining? If I had to put my money on it, I think that might be Dan Hooker versus Nasrat. I think that might be it. Yeah, I think that'll be probably the most entertaining fight. And I think, call me crazy, but this whole travel thing, like it obviously brings into question like how it will hinder their performance, because certainly you can't say it's ideal performances for a fight, like not ideal conditions to go into a fight for either guy. But I think that'll bring out the dog in them. Like it brought out the dog in them as far as getting this far. Like getting this far was not easy. They campaigned for visas on Twitter. I mean, they've been through so much that once they get in there, they're gonna let it all out. So I think that's gonna be a fantastic fight. I really do. The Toyota Celica of the fight game. Nah, man. The Diaz brothers are the Prius. The Priuses of the fight game. Not the fastest car in the lot, but efficient and reliable. The Honda Civics. All right, I'll answer a few more and dip out. Getting a little hungry. Do you think that Volkanovski beat Max Holloway twice? I think he beat him the first time. That's who I had it scored for. The second time I had Max Holloway winning. But no doubt it was a close fight. I'm not ready to call the second fight a robbery. I would say it's controversial. I say there's, again, like I said, I thought Max Holloway won, but I don't think it's all that crazy to say that, to make a case that Volkanovski beat him in that second fight. But again, there are always going to be close fights at that high level. When you're talking about the two very best featherweights in the world, becomes a game of inches. So it's like making an argument to trash like Zhang Wei Li, that Joanna should have been champion. Like I had, or vice versa, right? Like I had Wei Li winning, but like if you told me that you thought Jon Jones won, I mean that fight was so close that maybe not to that degree Volkanovski and Holloway too, but certainly somewhat on that direction rather than a robbery, I would say. Remember, like and subscribe, please. Yeah, I forgot to say that, man. I'm rusty. If this is your first time watching me ramble about MMA and anything you ask, please like and subscribe. Like I said, I know I've been on a long layoff as far as content on this channel, and I know some people unsubscribed. I get the numbers, and rightfully so. I'm not bashing you if you unsubbed. But again, I've always said this. I'm gonna do this because it's fun and because I enjoy doing it. The moment it stops doing that, I'll take a break from it or whatever it is. Like I'm here for a good time. I'm not here for anything else. So yeah, like and subscribe. I will be doing this more often. I'll be more active. Again, no weekly live Q&As, but previews, recaps, and the occasional weekly live Q&A will be there. I don't want to go full into it until I get the look that I want and sort of upgrade this whole experience as far as the production. That's in the works. That's going to happen. But until that actually does go down, I don't want to have I don't want to like go full in, but at the same time, I'm not gonna do the opposite of what I've been doing over the past months, where I've been radio silent. So I'll be back. You'll expect content here, but again, until there's a formal rebrand, I won't go ham on this thing. All right, but yeah, like and subscribe, please. All right, let's see here. John loves the desmadre, bro. That guy. Apparently he does. Let's see. What other questions are out here? Some Charlie Olives questions, but I'll stay away from those. Again, I'm keeping things locked here to UFC 266. Okay, here's a good question. Do you think UFC is using Valentina's full potential as a star? Given her speaking 4 languages, I believe she has the potential to penetrate many markets, in my opinion. Yeah, for sure. She's a fighter that can, certainly get behind in the English market. I feel like I feel like she can really like get behind sort of the American culture, right? Like she's all about hunting. She's all about guns. She loves guns, man, and that's something Americans love. I feel like I believe she's lived in Texas for a bit. She very much enjoys like American culture and in some ways very much adopted part of the culture. And I think, there's a lot to relate to from an American perspective, from a Hispanic and Latin American perspective, 1000%. She's not just somebody that knows the language, but she knows the culture. She's lived in Latin America. Not a lot of people can say that, that know Spanish and are not from Latin America. So, she knows so much about Latin America that she's been in a crossfire shootout, in a stick up at a chicken store in Peru. Like, you know what I'm saying? If you live long enough in Latin America, like as an adult, like maybe I can't speak for certain countries, but in Colombia, like you would definitely experience a mug or two. But anyways, that's just the nature of how it is. But yeah, I do think she could maybe be a little bit of a bigger star. But again, I don't necessarily think she'll be like a Conor McGregor type fighter. I think once they open up markets in Russia, because they've had some cards there, but not necessarily like a strong point. Again, she's a fighter that she's so versatile. Like you need somebody to represent and cater the European market. Boom, you can plug her in a main event. Latin America, same thing. America, same thing. She's sort of a Swiss Army woman in that sense, and Swiss Army knife type figure that can play many roles for many markets. And I do think the best is yet to come. How old is she? I think she might be like 32 or something like that. She's 33, but she'll fight much longer. I mean, she's in impeccable shape and her skill is only going up. So I'm really curious to see how she fares, especially in the Latin American one, once COVID allows the UFC to sort of open doors there. So we'll see. All right, I'll answer a couple more questions and dip out. Is Hablemos MMA on its own channel or the MMA Junkie page? It's its own channel. You can go on this very channel and scroll down on featured channels, and you'll see the Hablemos MMA specific channel there. All content in Spanish. All interviews, analysis, whatever the hell you want, it's there. And I'm really happy with the way that channel is going. So please like and subscribe over there as well if you speak Spanish or want to learn Spanish. A lot of people have reached out to me and said, hey, I don't know that much Spanish, but I know a little bit. I'm learning. And, this channel has been helping me improve my Spanish and also keep it within topics that I like, obviously MMA. So please go subscribe. I'm really happy with the content that's being produced there. All right, that's it. That's it. I'm gonna call it. I'm gonna call it a day here, an hour and 15 minutes. Usually we go an hour. So you got 15 minutes extra there. I'm a little tired. I want some food, so I'm gonna bounce out. Again, thank you so much for everyone that is still subscribed to the channel and sort of put up with me not putting any content over the last few months. But understand, I've been very busy, a little burnt out, and then I was kind of just, I didn't want to start up again until I got everything rebranded, but that's taking a little bit longer than I thought. So then I also don't want to just go on a super long hiatus. So again, trust, I'm back. I back. Trust me. I back. All right. So again, thank you so much. Like, subscribe, share this to your friends if you enjoy the content. Spread the love, as they say. And that's it. I'll catch you guys somewhat soon.